Welcome back, everybody. We're here to go ahead and do a screen assembly replacement on this Motorola Nexus 6. You can see that it's definitely got a shattered screen on it. So we're going to use a tile suction cup here to help us kind of pull off the back of the device. A few other tools that we're going to use is a heat gun to heat up the back. We'll be using a couple different opening tools, possibly this nylon spudger, maybe this safe opening pry tool. This iSesamo tool, which is awesome. This thing rocks. I would suggest buying one if you repair a lot of phones. And then we'll be using a small Torx screwdriver. This is a 5. It's actually going to be a Torx 4. And a SIM card eject tool to go ahead and pop our SIM card out of the phone. I'm going to go ahead and start with that first. Go ahead and pop out the SIM card tray and remove it and set it aside. The next step is to go ahead and heat up the rear of the device so we can remove it. There's basically adhesive everywhere underneath this thing. So we're going to use our heat gun and get it nice and warm, work our way around the device. Now this heat gun is pretty warm, but we're not going to get it to the point where we're going to melt anything. And honestly, some of these backs are easy to get off and some of them are really difficult to remove. Normally you can tell at the beginning it'll start to kind of pill up if it's going to be really easy to remove. A pry tool will fit underneath nice and easy. But in some cases you'll have to use like the iSesamo tool, something a little bit stronger to go ahead and start the removal process of this. I like to use a suction cup to help me pull it away and kind of give me some leverage room to start with. So now we got it nice and warm. Put our suction cup on here. We're going to use a guitar pick as our opening tool. You can use a safe opening pry tool or a spudger as well. Use a little bit thinner one. See if we can't just get it in here. So I'm pulling back on the suction cup and then pushing down with the pick. It really just doesn't want to get started for us. So it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a tricky one. So we're going to use our iSesamo tool and get that in there. So I'm going to put the tip in and then slide it to the sideways so I get a nice flat portion. That'll help us not damage the side of the phone. Then I'm going to use a guitar pick to go ahead and do the rest. That way we don't damage the bezel of the device and it looks nice and clean when we put it back together. So now that I got that started, I can go ahead and remove the iSesamo tool and start to work my pick around. Now they're using 3M double-sided adhesive inside of here. It's pretty sticky stuff. And the way that the phone's laid out is basically right underneath the Motorola symbol on the back. It's actually put out in two sides. They flap open in the middle. So you want to make sure that when you're using your tool, I'm going to use a nylon spudger to get a little bit further reach in here, that you're on top of the plastic housing of the phone. It's got little round holes cut through it, like it's been drilled out. You want to make sure you stay on top of that at all times. The battery's underneath this. There's a couple of wires that's powered the phone back on. A couple of wires on the phone that you want to be careful of. The first one in the bottom right hand corner here, there's going to be a battery connector. It's covered by a rubber grommet, so we have to stress about it too much. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back. It's a pretty malleable piece of plastic, the back, but you don't want to bend it, stress factor it in any way. So I'm going to use it just to pull back and see where I can put my spudger. Twist it left and right, kind of rock it and start to get that adhesive to pull off. The next cable that you need to be very careful of is to the left of the camera, down to the Motorola symbol, about middle of the left side of the phone. So be careful there as well. I suggest if you're peeling the back off that you wait and see where those are at before you go too much further. To work our way down, I'm going to put my spudger in here sideways. We're going to give it a little bit more heat here. Looks like the adhesive isn't extremely warm in this area, so we're going to try to get it a little bit warmer to give it a little bit ease of removal. Again, not to the point where we're going to damage or melt anything. We're just getting it nice and warm to the touch. Go ahead and work our way down here again. Like I was saying, it's got basically two flanges, one on the top and one on the bottom. So when you're peeling this back, you want to make sure that you don't put too much stress on that top one as you're peeling away from the bottom. Now, one of the reasons why you're not just going to pull this back off is there is basically a little bit of adhesive that's over the power button connector that connects the logic board to the volume power, so you want to be careful of that. So we're just using my finger to kind of pull back a little bit. We're getting right to where the flange is going to be at, and we're going to start the new side. We're just going to take a look at where we can put our spudger in. Make sure that we're on top of that piece of plastic. Now we're going to work away from the top now. Now if you don't want your housing to reattach itself to the tape, if the adhesive, you can use a playing card or the guitar picks down there to kind of hold it off. You'll see the amount of adhesive they use to put this back on is pretty incredible. They use a lot. Put our guitar pick in here. We're going to get it nice and warm again. Right now it should be a little bit more pliable. We can go ahead and start to pull this off. So just working my way towards the Motorola logo there. So we can't pull this back now. So you can see right here is the ribbon cable that you need to be very careful of on the right where my nylon spudger's at currently. So I'm putting my finger on it to hold it down. There's a little bit of adhesive that was on it that was pulling it back. You want to be careful to damage that cable. And now the power button's under the grommet there at the top right hand corner on the screen. So you can see that they put adhesive all the way through here. Basically anywhere there's not a hole has adhesive on the back of this. All the way around. Now you can see that we have many screws here. Now we're going to mess with these connectors just a little bit. So we'll pull off whatever residual adhesive is here. So go ahead and just power my phone off again before I take the battery grommet off. Right here's the battery grommet. Now it's pretty hard to damage this when you're removing the back, but you just want to be careful with it. Don't want to pop the grommet up and damage this connector under here. It just pulls right up from this front side, and that'll go ahead and disconnect the battery and now make it so you don't turn your phone on anymore. Remove this connector up here, this grommet. And this connector connects the power volume rocker to the logic board, so we're just going to go ahead and pull it up as well. There's a little piece of Kapton tape on top of this connector here. If this pulls up from the back forward, you can remove the tape. I find that it's not really necessary majority of the time. Once you have it pulled up, you can go ahead and just remove the volume button, power button cable. Now actually you don't even have to remove that cable, you just need to unclip it from the motherboard. I do both just because I don't want to damage the cable when I'm working here. Now we're going to undo all of the screws off the back of this with this Torx 4 screwdriver. There are 22 of these screws in the back. The nice thing is that they all are universal. It doesn't matter where you take them out, but you do have to take them all out, and that is a lot. You always want to make sure you're using the correct size screwdriver. I see a lot of things saying that this is a Torx 3 screw, but this is actually, in my screwdriver, a Torx 4 is a better fit. And I want to make sure I don't strip any screws out. About halfway done, it's working our way around the sides here. Now the one screw that you can leave in is for the power button volume rocker. You don't have to undo that screw. If you do, then your buttons are going to want to pop right out. Your hand's going to be a little bit tired by the time you get done with this. Got a couple deeper inset screws here. To the left of the camera. To the right of the camera. So just double check and make sure before you start trying to pry it out that you didn't miss one. Like this one here. Look at all the screw holes and just make sure they're all out. You don't want to damage anything. We're trying to remove the back off of here. And this right here is why you double check. Missed one down here at the bottom. Just doing a quick count to make sure I had them all. Alright, looking good. So now that we have that portion done, we're going to go ahead and separate the bezel from the screen assembly. And where the blue and the black meet is right where it's going to be. Just use a guitar pick or a safe opening tool and work your way down. Be careful of the volume, power up, power down buttons. And just work your way around. We'll go ahead and unclip from this back here. There we go. Go ahead and set that aside. That'll have your battery, your wireless charger in it. Now we're going to use our nylon spudger to go ahead and peel up some of this Kapton tape here. Let's just set that aside. Work with the camera, Kapton tape. And the connector for the digitizer here. So I'm going to flip up the black connector portion here. You can go ahead and pull the ribbon cable out. It does have a little bit of adhesive underneath it that holds on the logic port, so we're just going to go ahead and pop that off. Do the same thing for the opposite cable. Go ahead and pull that straight back. Now I know I took out the Kapton tape for the camera, but it doesn't look like we'll have to take it off. We'll pull up the front-facing camera, make sure it's out of its socket as well before we go ahead and start to remove the board. There's an additional screw onto the logic board here, just right above the camera and a little bit to the right. Has a little metal bracket. We're going to go ahead and remove that. With that done, we can go ahead and work to remove the logic board off of the screen assembly. And set that aside. Our next step is to go ahead and remove this metal housing here. To do so, we're going to peel up the digitizer cable, just move it forward. So if your new screen assembly doesn't come with this, you can go ahead and pop this off and transfer it over. A lot of them do, but I've seen some that don't come with this. Put our spudger underneath. Now it basically has little clicks that's fit in just around these screw holes. So just using our spudger, putting a little bit of pressure on it just with the angled side here. Now be careful to try not to bend this. You can always bend them back to shape, but will never be 100% perfect, so just be careful when you're removing it. Down here at the bottom, you'll see some black tape, kind of a foam gasket housing looking piece. This is actually taped onto the bottom of the mid frame or the bezel. So we're going to go ahead and just peel that forward and then off of the bezel. And once that's removed, that is the end of the disassembly. If you found the video helpful, hit that like button. If you want to see future videos, go ahead and subscribe to me. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll do my best to get to them. If you want to see the reassembly portion of this, I'll throw that down in the description of this video. Thanks for watching.